And oh, here comes Emmy. And is that Jenny? Is that you on the phone?
Amber Curtis is on the phone.
Oh, it's Amber. Well, because Jenny Hess was just here and she said she was gonna get on in just a few minutes. So I expect she'll be on here real soon too. So we're recording and she can jump in when she gets on. I'll click her in. Hopefully I'll be able to see that. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. In here. So we'll share that. Keep my participants. I want to keep this open so I can see who is getting on. Sometimes it's hard when it's just me and I don't have Emily here to help me because she usually keeps track of the stuff I can't keep track of when I'm talking. So, so bear with me, if you will. All right. I'm going to try to move. We have a lot of information. I'm going to try to move through fairly quickly, but just in the interest of time, because, you know, we've all got stuff to do. If you have any questions, though, you can just shout those out. If you type them in the chat box, since it's just me and Emily's not helping me, I may or may not see that in the chat box. So you might need to speak up and let me know if you have a question. But not a problem because I'm pretty informal. Do you guys see the title page, Make Meetings Matter?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. I thought this would be valuable for club leaders in any year, but especially since we haven't been able to do any meetings yet, and we're getting ready, hopefully, to gear up and do some as soon as the levels get to that point, and we can all kind of get started, hopefully soon. So I think it's timely. So we will go ahead and move forward. Come on, there we go. All right. So first off, well, I neglected to say on the title page, I did not write the bulk of this presentation myself. This was written by a youth educator in Ohio, and she shared this with educators across the country at the national conference this past year. So we do have permission to use it. I did alter it and change it around to more appropriate for us locally, but just so you know, up front, that I'm going to give credit to somebody else for most of this, but it is very good stuff. Okay, so why do meetings matter? There was a survey done in 2015 of first-year 4-H members, and some of the startling things that came out of it, 20% of first-year 4-H members felt very unwelcome, somewhat unwelcome, or neither welcome or unwelcome in their club meetings. That's 1 out of every 5 new kids that didn't really feel like they knew if they belonged there. So it's so important to make sure we create those connections with those first-year members, especially. So that they feel wanted and welcome and that they want to hang around. It was statistically significant in that survey that the more welcome they felt, the more likely they were to enroll in 4-H again. That's kind of common sense, right? But I think it's also important to show that the data supports that common sense notion, that the more welcome they feel, the more likely they are to enroll. And anecdotally, here in Owen County, one of the first things I did when I came in here in 2019 was take a look at those kinds of numbers. And we're losing about half the kids after the first year. So of all kids that sign up as a first-year member here in Owen County, half of them don't come back the second year. That's where we lose most. So it's so important to make sure that we're connecting with those first-year members. So the bottom line, if a 4-H member and their family, and I capitalize and emphasize and, because it's their families too, right? Especially these younger guys. If their families don't feel welcome, they're not going to come back either. So we want them to continue in 4-H. We want them to have a good experience. Comes Jenny. So that they will come back and enjoy the benefits of 4-H moving forward. Okay. So why do youth come to club meetings? So they come when they're having fun, or they know they're going to have fun. They know that they're going to be with friends, or they're going to make new friends. They're learning new things, because believe it or not, kids do like to learn new things. They'll tell you maybe they don't, but they do. That they're given choices. So if they're given choices when they come to a club meeting, that's going to help. When they're empowered to make those group decisions, and when they feel like they can make a difference and provide service. And I think sometimes we don't give them enough credit for, especially that last one. You know, that's definitely something we talk about in 4-H is community service. But I think it's been proven that kids want to do that too. You know, they want to be able to make that difference and be a part of improving things in their community. So all of these things are really important when we're talking about club meetings, because if you don't have these things, they're not going to want to come, right? If it's not fun, and you notice fun is at the top, you know, because this is something voluntary. They don't have to do this. So they're going to want to do something that's a good time for them, and they want to do it with their friends. So we want to try to make sure that we're making those connections, not just with them as adults, but within the youth themselves. Okay, so originally in the email I sent out, I sent a link out to a tool for a 4-H club assessment. So hopefully you got that. I think I sent it out again today, maybe. It's been quite a day. I can't remember if that was today or yesterday, to remind. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. If you haven't, please do take the time to complete that assessment at your convenience when we're done here tonight. And just so you know, I don't need the results of that assessment. The reason I'm having you do that is this is something for your benefit, so that you can take a look at the status of your club and what you might need to focus on to improve that. So don't feel like this is something where I'm being nosy and want to know all this dirt on anyone. That's not it at all. This is for you to use to find out how is your club doing, and what can you do to make that experience better for the kids in your club. So once you take the assessment, have any of you done it? Have any of you guys had a chance to do that assessment yet?
I took it. I took it like a half an hour ago.
Okay.
So.
Excellent.
Guilty, same.
No, believe me, not guilty.
We're fresh. At least we're fresh.
At least you're fresh. Well,
Yes.
the good thing about that is you are fresh, so you kind of know what I'm talking about, and
Yes.
those questions are kind of fresh in your mind. When I took it myself. When I took it, the feeling I had, as I do a lot of times, is like, wow, I'm worse than I thought. You know, but that's okay, because nobody's perfect. Everybody has their strengths. You're going to do some things better than others. But this helps you kind of pinpoint what areas you need to improve on. So how you are doing as an adult volunteer, and how your club is doing as a whole. Okay. Any questions on that assessment, or any thoughts or feelings about it?
I definitely think that you hit the nail on the head with fun, because sometimes I think, Emmy will know what I mean. There's people that come there for chickens, and there's kids that come there because, oh, my friend was joining this club, maybe I'll do chickens. And you don't want the kids to have a boring time, because even, like, for example, as an adult, I love chickens, but if I went to a meeting where I felt like the speaker was boring, which has happened in every genre, I can even tune out if I like the topic. Likewise, I feel like if we have an engaging person speaking, or we're doing fun stuff, you don't have to love chickens to have a good time. So exactly. I think it's very true.
Exactly. exactly. And I mean, and going with the chicken theme, because I've never raised chickens. I don't know anything about chickens, but if it's
Right.
somebody that's interesting,
Yes.
I do find it interesting. It is kind of
Yes.
fascinating, and they're kind of fun, right? So yeah,
Yep.
you're absolutely right, Amy. This is just a little graphic to kind of have you kind of take a look at yourself to see what kind of leader you are. And none are good or bad, right? Sometimes there's a place for any of these really. But what we hope is that you primarily are going to be not definitely not C, right? We don't want your club members just along for the ride most of the time and you doing all the work. As an adult, we don't want that most of the time, but there might be times where that's appropriate, when there might be some minutia that has to be done and you just have to get it done. There might be a time for that. um, we want you to be working together. So like in A, right? You guys are pulling together as adults and volunteers. Or B, where you kind of step back and you're kind of doing that guidance and letting them do the heavy lifting. Or even D, where you're kind of giving them even more independence. So this is just to kind of get you to think about what kind of leader you are, what kind of style you have, and not saying any is better than another. Okay. So now we're getting into the real material that this person in Ohio developed. I really like this worksheet, and I will send out an actual digital copy of this worksheet too, because I think this is really valuable. It's sort of the anatomy of a meeting, right? You don't have to follow this to the T. This is just a nice graphic that gives you a framework to refer to. So especially if you're not completely comfortable in that role and haven't had a whole lot of experience in that role, this is something to kind of hang your hat on. But if you mix these up a little bit, or don't do one thing, or do spend more time on another thing, really that's okay. It's what's going to work best for your club for that particular club meeting, right? So we're going to break these down. I broke all 4 of these down. So the first part of the meeting is going to be kind of that pre-meeting activity. So this is the time we're talking about when people are arriving. Not everyone is there yet. People are still coming in, but you can still use that time to be meaningful, right? This can be a time, as it says here, that allows time for you as leaders to meet with your officers and make sure your officers are ready to go, right? Make sure they're prepared. This is a time that creates that welcoming environment. If you remember back to that very first slide we had that talked about making kids feel welcome. This is the time when they are or are not going to feel welcome, just right off the bat walking in that door. This is the time when members get to know each other, and everybody can be involved in this. And having some sort of structure to this time, because this is sort of that structured, unstructured time, if you get what I mean. You aren't really into the meat of your business yet, but you need to have something to kind of reduce that chaos. So over here to the left, I just put some examples of what that might look like. You might do icebreakers there, and there we have tons of resources. If you guys need help finding some icebreakers, there's tons of resources here in the office. There's tons online, all kinds of different things that that we can help you find to use that. Scavenger hunts are good in this. Games, even simple games like rock, paper, scissors, just something to kind of keep these kids engaged in that first 15 minutes or so. You might have a song leader that's in charge of this time, leading songs. You might do some sort of challenge, like how many words can you make out of the letters of our club name, right? That's an easy and quick kind of challenge that the kids might kind of get into and work together on. All right, we got Aaron coming on too. So in that time, like I said, I kind of look at it as a structured, unstructured time of your meeting, right? All right. Then the second piece of your meeting is going to be that business meeting part, that part that is all about parliamentary procedure, right? Where you can take votes on things and do your club business in this. And it should not go more than 20 minutes. All right. This is where a lot of mistakes are made, right? You get bogged down in an issue or an event or something that's coming up. And it really shouldn't take that much time, because and we'll talk about committees here in a second, if you need a ton more time to work out the details of an event or any particular issue that you have, that might be something that needs to go to committee so that you're not taking up the time in your business meeting. This part of your meeting is well planned, right? So that may include having committee reports given during this time. As I mentioned, this is the time that's all about parliamentary procedure. This is the time that you follow an agenda. It's kind of the roadmap for this part of your meeting. And I always feel like no matter how young the child in the meeting, you hand them some sort of an agenda, right? It can be very simple. It's also a really good idea. I've started doing this in the meetings I do with other people, is put the timing on the meeting so that the people in the meeting are aware of, okay, this is only going to be 5 minutes. I can do anything for 5 minutes, right? So that kind of gives them something to hang on to, that they can do this, and it's not going to be, because this is not the fun part of the meeting, right? We talked about how it's important to have fun in the meeting. You can make it more fun, right? But this is the business. This part of the meeting's led entirely by the officers. Now, you as a leader obviously can step in and help. And as we talked about with that leader style on the other slide, there might be times when you need to step in more. Different clubs might have different dynamics. Some of our clubs are full of very young members, right? So we have a few clubs that don't have many veteran members, so they might need a little extra help from you as a leader. You stay on topic, and as I mentioned, any prolonged discussion might be better dealt with in committee, and then those recommendations brought back. Okay, but preparation is really the key for this part of the meeting, because this is the part where it can get out of hand. This is the part of the meeting that can go way too long, and nobody wants to be there way too long. Okay. All right. So just talking a little bit more about those kinds of things that happen in that part of the meeting. Group decisions happen, right? So here are some different possibilities, some different ways you can come to group decisions. So brainstorming is one I use a lot because it's easy, right? You need something to write on. You need a chalkboard or a whiteboard or a flip chart of something. You could even do it on the computer through Jamboard if you're projecting that on your computer. But brainstorming's easy. Consensus, and that's just having kind of a general discussion in the large group and taking easy votes. Like, okay, how many of you think we should do a food drive for Valentine's Day? And yeah, I think that's a great idea. So just coming to a consensus. Rapid response is exactly what it sounds like. You just go around the room and boom, 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 boom. Everybody gives you their first feeling as to what they want to do. Suggestion box is kind of a neat one too, but you have to have a way to deal with whatever comes through the suggestion box. So somebody's got to check it, because that'll happen sometimes. People will be putting stuff in a suggestion box. We did this I did this with middle schoolers once when I was working in a middle school, and people would forget to check the suggestion box. I'd have people showing up in my office like, whatever happened? I put this in the suggestion box and nobody ever, did anything about it. So you got to make sure you have somebody that's their job to check the suggestion box. A buzz group is, it's what it sounds like, because it sounds like buzzing going on when you break up. So if you have a large group, let's say you have 25 people at your meeting, that's a lot of people to try to have a discussion on a topic, because people will, usurp that conversation. You know, 2 or 3 people are going to get to talk and and other people won't. So you break the group up into no more than 2 or 3 per group. And you have little groups buzzing all around the room about whatever the issue is and whatever the topic is. And then you come back to the large group, and you each little group will share what they came up with. And then again, back to committees for a topic that is just large and just way too much to tackle in a regular meeting. You guys have any questions on any of those? I always feel like I talk a lot, so don't feel like you can't interrupt me, because it is so fine to do that. So the benefits of the committees, and I've talked a lot about these, and it may feel like I'm talking about a lot about committees, but I think they get forgotten a lot because people are very concerned about making sure everybody has input. But believe me, if you use committees the way they're supposed to be used, everybody will have input. Maybe not on every single thing to the detail, right? But those reports get brought back, and you can still take votes, and you can still do that kind of thing. But the bulk of the hard work gets done away from that main meeting. So it allows members of larger clubs to have leadership opportunities. So especially if you have a large club, you have, your set of officers, which is usually your veteran 4-Hers, right? These are usually the older kids. Well, those younger kids, those that are middle school age, upper elementary age, they eventually are going to be there, right? They're eventually going to be your officers in that club. Committee chairmanships allow them to get some of that leadership experience, and that they can take with them in future years when they want to be an officer. So this allows more members of the clubs to have those leadership opportunities. It gives members a chance to know each other better. So when you're in a smaller group and working hard on a single topic, you're going to get to know each other better. It spreads that responsibility around among club members. And something related to that is it allows those club members to really focus on things they might have an interest in, right? So if I am interested in being on the recreation committee, if there is such a thing, or you want to make a recreation committee, I'm really interested in that. So I'm going to be on that committee, but I'm not super interested in the community service committee, right? I don't know, just as an example. But it allows them to really follow what they're interested in. And as I've said over and over, your business meetings are going to be shorter if you use committees, because they hash out the details, and then they just bring those recommendations to the full club. Okay. All right, that third piece of the framework of a meeting is the education piece. And this is the piece of the meeting that's probably going to take the most time. And that is because that's kind of what we're about, right? We're educating our members. And this can look like a lot of different things. So they've listed here guest speakers are always good. I know you guys in poultry have had a lot of great guest speakers. That's a great education piece to your meeting. Demonstrations, and that can be demonstrations from members, which is nice because it gives members a chance to do some of that public speaking and to practice and share what they love about a project. But it can also be demonstrations from a community member on something. You can take field trips, or you can take tours. You can do community service as this part of your meeting, project work even. So if you wanted to have a meeting where you spend that 40 or 45 minutes on making posters for their projects, that could be something you do. You could even find, if you had a good video or something, that might be there. Just on the left, I just put some other kind of ideas on different things. You can do team building exercises, which are always fun. If you had a club recognition type thing, mini project clinics, so you could do just short how-tos on a lot of things. Your health and safety. Do you guys have health and safety officers in your clubs? I don't know if that's a thing that most clubs have. Yeah, I don't know, but that's a place where
I think so. I think I think there was, not in the poultry club, but in the actual 4-H club, yes.
in the community-based clubs.
Yes.
I thought there were in a lot of them, but I don't know. I didn't know if all of them had them. But
Yes.
this is a great time if you had a program that your health and safety person, especially when we're talking about COVID right now, right? This might be that might be a good topic for this portion of a meeting. So there's all kinds of things that you could do with this that focuses on educating your members. And then the final piece, of course, is that recreation time. So if you have recreation officers, they can prepare and lead this part. And it's important that it's fun and it's interactive and it includes everyone. And I love how she put even parents on here, because remember, those parents need to feel welcome too. And it's really nice for kids to see their parents getting involved. It's really nice to have that. We're all about, we are a 4-H family and we're about serving families, not just the youth. So we want to involve the parents if we can. And everybody, feed them, they will come, right? So everybody loves snack time. So that's where this would go. On the left, I just added a couple things. Get up and move, especially if the weather's nice, get outside. Right. So it's nice to do something where they're getting up and moving, especially if you're just coming off that education piece that may have been a lot of sitting there and listening, right? Hopefully there was interactive pieces in that as well, but some topics that may not be feasible. So make sure in the recreation part, you're getting up and moving. So that's kind of the bulk of your meeting. She based this on a 2-hour or less meeting. I don't know how long your typical meetings are going. So this might, each of those pieces might just be a little bit shorter if you're trying to get it in an hour or an hour and a half. Right. Questions on that before I move on? Comments? Okay, awesome. Okay, so some best practices that we kind of threw together here for effective 4-H clubs, and there are others. So, but these are some things that kind of pop to the top. Develop and follow a yearly club program. So I made a note to myself to remind everybody 4-H is cyclical, right? Typically, the same kinds of things happen at the same times of year every year. So you can build your club program around the 4-H cycle, right? So different things you can, you're preparing for fair, in the spring going into summer, you're talking about, all kinds different things. We're talking about recruitment in the fall. There might be Christmas activities, holiday activities, any of that kind of thing. So it's, if you can prepare an outline of what your year is going to look like year to year, you can fill in it makes it easier to fill in the details than each year. Most of you do this one, which is set meetings at a consistent date, time, and place. I see you. So most of the clubs have a consistent date, time, and place that they meet. And we're going to be touching base, if Emily hasn't done it already, to make sure that we have everybody's date, time, and place that we can put together in one sheet to publicize that. It's important as leaders that you communicate consistently and clearly. And I would suggest if you're meeting monthly, which are you guys mostly meeting monthly, or are you meeting more often than that? Monthly. So if you're meeting monthly, I would suggest that at least you're putting something out in that two week mark, right? So you have a meeting and about 2 weeks later, push out a newsletter or an email or something with some communication on it. And then, 2 weeks later, you're having a meeting. So I would suggest something like that. It doesn't have to be, whatever works best for you. You guys may have noticed here at the office, we've started putting out a weekly newsletter. And what makes it work, and we've had some pretty good feedback on it, what makes that work is it's short, it's 1 page, it's not a lot to digest, yet you're getting those pieces of information regularly that you need. and we have room to improve too, but that is kind of the idea, that we are touching base at least weekly with all of our 4-H family. I love this next one, which is having greeters at the door to welcome families and orient them to the pre-meeting activity, right? So as people are coming in that first 15 minutes that you are maybe meeting with your officers to make sure they're prepared, have somebody assigned to be the greeter, right? As people are walking in, hey, this is what we're doing. Grab a ball. We're gonna, we're tossing balls at the target or whatever you're doing. To do that, but make everyone feel welcome, especially if they're new, and especially if it looks like they're not really, feeling real comfortable, and just be friendly. Have somebody there that can be friendly with them. And you're going to welcome and introduce new members and visitors during your meeting. It's always important to acknowledge the new people that are there. Sometimes people get embarrassed by that, but you can just, it's as easy as saying, hey, we have some new members. You don't have to make them stand up, but it's nice to ask them to stand up so everybody can see. But just acknowledge that they're there, and that will do wonders to make them feel welcome. And then we already talked about this one a little bit, but volunteers, you guys are acting more as guides or coaches while your youth officers provide that leadership. And again, that can vary. The amount of that can vary depending on your particular situation. But the idea is to allow the youth to take ownership of running the meetings as much as possible. What other practices do you guys have or are planning that might work well for other clubs too? Is there anything else you guys do?
Jennifer, I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
It's Jenny Hess.
Hi, Jenny.
The CAT club is a little bit different because it's a project club.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't think we had officers for a project club. Am I incorrect in that?
Well, I think you guys do in poultry, yeah? Yeah. I know poultry does. I'm trying to think if dog does or not. I'm not sure. I don't remember if Becky does or not.
Dog does. My girls are in dog, and for the 3 years they've been in it, we've never had officers.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
And when the girls were in CAT with Laura, there was no officers in CAT.
Right. Well, I don't, and I don't know, because that's a pretty small group.
Yes, very.
Yeah, so they may work well just kind of sharing that leadership, maybe.
Okay.
There's no rule that says you have to have officers, Jenny. So if you don't want to do that.
Project club that you did. So I wasn't sure if I was doing something wrong or not.
No.
Okay.
In a larger community club, it's a good idea because it's more varied in what you're dealing with a project club.
Right.
It's more specified. So there's not any rule that says you have to. But like I said, since it's a small group, you might want to kind of share those leadership opportunities amongst the whole group then. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so that's a good one.
Thank you.
No, that's a good one. Anybody else have anything that they do in particular that seems to work well?
One question kind of on the same line with officers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys handle if you have, say, president, vice president, and they don't show up? Like consistently because they're busy, or maybe they're an officer in another club. Do you kind of, when you do elections, do you make it like a requirement, like you have to attend so many meetings? How do you guys handle that?
Does anybody else have any want to share how they've handled that in the past, and then I can chip in my 2 cents?
And it seems like all the younger kids are there.
It's Erin, by the way. So one of the things that we do with our club is we have a president, and then that's older. I mean, honestly, it's generally one of my kids because they're the only ones that come to the meetings because I make them for the older kids. and then they pair with one of the younger kids to teach them how it's done. Because we teach parliamentary procedure and things like that. So we pair them up with somebody else, and then we make either our president or vice president has to be there. And unless they have a really good reason, after 3 times, then vice president moves up.
Okay.
We're mean, Amy. I'm sorry, but
No, that's good. I think we had our president and vice president came the night we did our elections, and they didn't come back. They just had conflicts. But we had so many young ones that were there regularly. That sounds like a good idea.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a hard one. Any time you're dealing with anything that's volunteer, it's hard. But I think it's important when you're doing elections to just make sure that it is that the expectations are out there. You know, we expect you to be here unless you have, you know, a really good reason. And how I handle that sometimes too, because I don't like to sound punitive with these kids. Like, you can't do it if you are a football player and can't make it to every meeting, right? Because that you don't want to turn them off that way. But it's okay to say, hey, we know you're busy, and maybe there's another way you can provide leadership to this club, but we really need someone who's going to be able to be here consistently. You know, give them that opportunity. What, Aaron?
I should point out for junior leaders, I just forgot that I'm doing more than one club now. But for junior leaders, we have 2 people in each position. So we have 2 presidents and 2 vice presidents. Because especially in junior leaders, as they get older and more involved, it's harder with the schedule.
Yeah, and that's a really good idea too. Kind of share that. So the important thing with that is, if you're going to share it, that they have good communication with each other too, so that they can cover one another if they need to. Excellent. Thanks, you guys. All right. So here on this, and again, I can share this whole PowerPoint with you guys if you want. I just wanted to give some resources. And as I was going through this before I started, I realized, hey, I didn't even put the fact that you can just call the office, right? You can just call us and we can try to help you. So that should be up here at the top. But one thing that we've started this year, we haven't even had it up a year. I think there was a YouTube channel at one point, but it never got used. So we started the YouTube channel, and we're posting videos like this session and any other volunteer sessions, and all of the whole series I did on kids getting ready to go to college, right? So all of those things we're recording and putting on that YouTube channel. So that's a good resource. And it's got, for instance, the volunteer trainings and that 4-H online how-to session that we did back in the fall. So we're going to keep adding to that. There's not a whole lot there right now. There's probably 7, 8, maybe 9 of those kinds of videos on there, but we'll keep adding to that. And so that will become an even better resource as we move forward. You guys, so when we had our first orientation meeting for volunteers, Emily gave you folders, club leader folders. I don't remember, did she include login instructions for club leaders for 4-H online? It may not have been ready yet, is why I'm wondering at the time. Okay, I have a handout, and I will send that also when I send this PowerPoint out to all of you, so that you have that. But club leaders have access, and I think right now it's restricted to pretty much just looking at your roster and the contact information of your members. But you can get into 4-H online as a leader and see who exactly is enrolled in your club, because I'm sure this never happens to you, but I guarantee there are going to be kids on your roster that you never see at a meeting, right? So it's important for you to know who's really in your club, and make the efforts to reach out to them and try to get them to attend, or at least get them the information and that sort of thing. So I'm going to make sure to get you the login instructions for that. I'll send you that digitally. The 4-H website, the state website, under the volunteer tab, there are tons of things there that you may or may not have ever looked at. But there's great stuff, including officer training manuals. So if you are interested in training your officers, there's some great stuff there. There are checklists on kind of the similar stuff that we've already talked about, going through meetings. All forms that you need, those financial forms that Emily hounded all of you about at the end of the year last year to get turned in. All of that stuff is under the volunteer tab on the state 4-H website. Okay. Our county website is another resource, and I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm not a big fan of it, right? Because our local site tends to get overrun with stuff that the state pushes out. So if we have any local stuff on there, it gets buried. They have promised us, and when I say they, state office is working on developing a new website. We were told in the fall it would be ready to roll out in February, and I've heard nothing since. So I don't know if in fact that will happen, but I really hope so, because I am not a fan of the current website. But there is stuff on there that is valuable if you're willing to dig for it. The Facebook page, a lot of you already follow the Facebook page. I consider this a good resource simply because it's the thing I do most often as far as getting stuff out, because it's the easiest for me to do. So if I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get this to people right now, I can put it on there quickly, and then make sure that families get an email later with everything, you know, all of that. But if you want to know the most up to date and the most stuff, it's probably going to be your best bet to follow that Facebook page. And then we also have Instagram. I'm not really much of an Instagrammer, but I try. so that we try to keep up on as well. And then Remind. So I think you all might be on. I mean, I don't know if you all are on Remind or not, but that's the link to it, so that you can join on. I don't use Remind a lot because I like to reserve it for the things that need to be done, that you need to know right now and be reminded of right now, because I don't want to blow up your phone with a bunch of texts, because it comes directly to your phone like a text. And I say that from experience because I'm on the band department's Remind, and we get stuff all the time. I'm like, I don't want to blow people's phone up like that. Okay. All right. Questions on any of those resources? Okay. All right. So again, I'm going to send this PowerPoint to you, but for now, if you have a phone and you can scan that QR code to get the evaluation done, I really appreciate this. This is really for me to get some feedback from you on how I can improve this presentation when I do it again, probably next year at about the same time. And then anything else that needs to happen. And it's also, I also have to report numbers and that kind of stuff. So this helps me. And so I appreciate it if you would do that. You can click the link or you can scan the code. Either one will take you there. And then I think we're pretty much done. I'm just going to see if you guys have any questions or comments or just thoughts for the greater good of the group. Well, I thank you guys for taking your time, and I kept it under an hour. It's 45 minutes. All right. I'm pretty proud of myself. I tried to do that because I don't like to hold people more than an hour, because we start to lose people at that point. I hope it was informative. And feel free, if you think of anything after we leave here tonight, feel free to email me or call. I'm here late most nights, so I'm rarely here before 8:45-ish, right? I kind of have decided that's going to be my the way I operate, because I was spending so much extra time here in the evenings and I'm not a morning person. So I have gifted myself that extra 45 minutes every morning. So I'm not usually here before 8:45, but Liz and Emily, someone is here by 8. So if you need to call before then, you can. But if you want me, it's going to be probably after 8:45. And do you all have my phone number? Because I don't answer the office phone after 4, but you can call or text my personal number. Here comes Mana. So if you want that, I am happy to give that to you if you don't have it. I think most of you guys have it. I'm trying to see. I'm gonna stop the share here real quick, and then I'll drop my phone number in the chat. That way you guys will have it. Now, I try to answer promptly, but that doesn't always happen if I'm busy with family stuff. So just FYI, but I don't mind. I really don't mind if you want to try to call or text because I'll eventually get there. If it's something that I need like to keep, like to have, email it to me, right? If it's like a series of questions, just email it to me. That'll be easier for me to deal with. But if it's a quick, I need to know this as soon as possible, just text me back. Then I'll eventually get that done. And I've been known to text in the middle of the night too. So if I happen to be awake, you might get an answer at 3 in the morning. You never know. All right, I'm going to stop recording. Hopefully.